in the heart of an ancient, untouched land, where the sun kissed the golden savanna and life thrived in a delicate balance, there lay a stone of immense power, Elite, the great, luminous stone. It was the soul of the land, the keeper of its peace, a radiant promise of prosperity for all who lived under its gentle glow. For generations, the animals of the savanna had revered it, understanding that its magic was meant to be shared, not owned. But the whispers of its power traveled on the wind, reaching ears that twitched not with reverence, but with ambition. And so, the long peace was destined to be broken. From the mists of a distant shore, a new power arrived. Ingwe, a magnificent leopard, unlike any the savanna had ever seen. His coat was not of simple spots, but of scarlet and gold, the colors of empire and conquest. He was larger, more regal, and carried an air of undeniable authority. His eyes, sharp and calculating, fell upon the great stone, and in its shimmering he saw not a shared blessing, but a prize to be claimed. His arrival cast a long, cold shadow over the once warm plains, a shadow that stirred the dust and the deep-seated fears of the land's original inhabitants. From the thorny thickets in the sun-baked earth emerged the niate, wild dogs. They were lean, tough, and numerous, their coats the color of the very dust they defended. They were not a single entity, but a brotherhood of clans bound by blood and soil. Their eyes, fiercely territorial, watched the leopard's every move. They had guarded this land for centuries, and they saw Ingwe not as a king, but as an invader. As the great leopard's paw, heavy with imperial might, reached for the stone, the jaws of the wild dogs snapped in defiance. The conflict was inevitable. The battle for the soul of the savanna had begun. What followed was not a war of equals, but a clash of philosophies. Ingwe, the leopard, possessed overwhelming power. He was a force of nature, a monolith of strength and strategy, expecting a pitched battle where his might would surely prevail. But the Nya, the wild dogs, knew they could not face this behemoth head-on. They were masters of their own domain, ghosts of the tall grass. They chose a different path. Guerrilla warfare. They melted into the landscape, their dusty coats a perfect camouflage against the dry earth. The great leopard, for all his power, found himself fighting shadows. He would advance, his heavy paws thudding against the ground, only to be met with silence. Then, in a blur of motion, the Nya would strike. They were swift, coordinated, and relentless. Darting from the deep grass, they would harass his flanks, snapping and biting, sowing confusion and frustration before disappearing back into the savanna as quickly as they had appeared. Ingwe would roar in anger, swatting at the air, but his enemies were gone. It was a war of 1,000 cuts, a test of endurance against brute force. The leopard's power was immense, but the wild dog's spirit, their knowledge of the land, and their unity made them a formidable, phantom-like adversary. The savanna itself had become a weapon, and its children were wielding it with deadly precision. The conflict raged, no longer a simple contest for a stone, but a desperate struggle that tore the very fabric of the land apart. Ingwe, the leopard, frustrated by the elusive wild dogs, unleashed a new and terrible strategy. He would not just conquer the land, he would break its spirit. He brought the scorched fires, fueled by bitterness and rage, swept across the golden plains, turning the endless savanna into a blackened, scarred wasteland. The sky, once a brilliant canvas of sunrise and sunset, was now choked with a permanent, suffocating blanket of thick, black smoke. The air, once sweet with the scent of wild grass, now tasted of ash and sorrow. Through this haze of destruction stood Indilamithi, the giraffe, tall, elegant, and silent. She had always been the watcher, the conscience of the savanna. Her long neck allowed her to see beyond the immediate fray, to witness the true costs of this war. With large, sorrowful eyes, she watched as the vibrant ecosystem collapsed. She saw the smaller animal families, the meerkats, the zebras, the springbok, representing the innocent people of the land being rounded up, their homes destroyed, their freedom gone, They were herded into fenced enclosures, grim and crowded, trapped by the swirling smoke and the new, brutal order. It was a tragedy on a vast scale, a stillness of profound suffering that settled over the charred remains of their world. The great stone was almost forgotten. The prize now was mere survival in a paradise lost. In the end, there was a victor, but there was no triumph. Ingwe, the great leopard, stood alone in the heart of the desolation he had created. His scarlet and gold coat was matted with dust, mud, and the stains of a long, brutal fight. He looked weary, his powerful muscles aching not just from battle, but from the sheer weight of his hollow victory. Before him lay the prize, Ilatai Lakulu, the great, luminous stone. But it was no longer radiant. It was shattered, its inner light extinguished, its pieces scattered like broken promises in the dirt. The magic was gone. He had won. The Nia were scattered. The land was subdued. But as he looked around, he saw only what he had lost. The savannah was silent and scarred. The vibrant life that once teemed around the stone was replaced by a graveyard of his own making. In the distance, silhouetted against the smoky sky, the giraffe, Indulamithi, still watched. Slowly, with an air of profound resignation and sorrow, she lowered her long head. It was not a bow of respect, but a gesture of mourning for the soul of the land that had been irrevocably tainted. The leopard had claimed the kingdom, but in doing so, he had destroyed everything that made it worth ruling. The silence that answered his victory was the most deafening sound of all. This tale, passed down through generations, is more than a story of animals. It's a mirror reflecting a painful history. The great stone is the wealth of the land, its minerals, its resources, its very soul. The powerful leopard, Ingwe, represents the colonizing forces that arrived with overwhelming might, seeking to claim that wealth for themselves. The tenacious wild dogs, the Nya, are the indigenous peoples, the clans and tribes who fought a desperate, asymmetric war to defend their ancestral home. And the sorrowful giraffe, Indulamithi, embodies the conscience, the witnesses who saw the immense human and environmental cost of the conflict of scorched-earth policies, the concentration camps, the shattering of a culture. The moral is a somber one. A victory won through destruction is no victory at all. When you break the spirit of a land and its people to claim its treasures, you are left with nothing but dust, ashes, and the ghost of what you destroyed. The true value is never in the stone itself, but in the harmony of the life that surrounded it. A lesson etched in the memory of the savannah, a warning that echoes through time. Thank you so much for watching. This story is an important allegory, and we hope it gave you something to reflect on. If you found this moving or thought-provoking, please consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel for more content like this. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Stay curious, and we'll see you in the next one.